I'm Penny Jackson. I'm a volunteer with Trap Free America and Save Our Wild Horses Actions, and we are really joined at the hip. We are, really one team. And Linda Kemp, who could not be here because of her health issues.
Please stop talking.
Because of her health issues, and she very much wanted to be here. I don't know of anyone else who loves animals as much as she does. Every time I talk to her, she reminds me of how precious their lives are and how we must keep fighting for them. Trap Free is a nonprofit citizen group. We're working to stop trapping and other cruel activities like wildlife killing contests, and to educate and advocate for wildlife and biodiversity. We have several active, very active Facebook groups in the War on Wildlife and Preserving American Wildlife. Please join us. We have an amazingly diverse group of people, and we educate very much about wild horses on our groups because we consider wild horse and burros to be American wildlife. And that is not always common in the wildlife world, so we are working to bring that forth. We advocate for all wildlife and for biological diversity on national, state, and local levels through education, legislation, legislative work, and community building, networking. Education is the key to the public understanding, networking. This is really important. It's something Linda and I have been talking about a great deal. Wild horses and burros are emblematic and representative of the war on wildlife and our lands and ecosystems. We have got to understand and bring to the public more broadly the link between the removal of our wild horses and burros and what's happening overall in the big picture to our lands and wildlife. And I have this wonderful thing that Linda Lee Wallace here said to me yesterday: where the wild horses go, there go the public lands. It just says it so strongly, and we must continue to work to bring this out to a larger community, including many of the wildlife advocates and environmentalists. We're here, Linda wanted to bring forth talking about harnessing the power of an event, which is Save Our Wild Horses and Wildlife Conference, and our presenting of these recommendations and how this is a really powerful step to protecting all of our wildlife, to bring our voices forth and bring us together. There's such a power in us joining together. And that joining together is the most powerful step we can take from here. The unity that we can build based on our common ground, not only in the wild horse advocacy, but in the world. And one of my personal, and Linda's as well, is bringing the younger generation. We have got to have them understand about public lands. The climate activists, they're very concerned about our future. They're concerned about the food systems, our climate, everything that's going on. With support from many of the people I've met, I've gotten more engaged in my state level in some of our wildlife issues, as well as my local environmental caucus. And we met with some of the young climate activists at the Florida Capitol. They were working on legislation. They were amazing. And then we did a caucus roundtable with some of the younger generation, and that's where they kept saying to us about climate, food systems, their worries about the future. They care very much, they're active in their community. And I think for us, it's how do we bring that link to them, to us? And we've got to look at how to work. We embrace and seek to build relationships with wildlife and environmental organizations and scientists who recognize the value of wild horses and burros in our ecosystems. And I think we have such great things that we've seen here with so many of these amazing people, the groups like Western Watersheds Project, Pier, who we'll be hearing from later, RAN. We also have IDA. It's one of the most wonderful organizations that have done so much for wild horses and all animals. I also brought some literature from some of the groups that I know are aligned with us. Roam Free, my wonderful buffalo, bison, wild bison activists. There's so many commonalities between the battle to save the last of the wild buffalo with the horses. So I've got some of their things. So we just really will continue to build anti-wild horse bias, as has been discussed. Here is very much joined with the anti-predator species bias in many ways in some cultures. And we also have within the scientific community and biologists and even environmentalists who really, they are biased against wild horses, and that's something we need to continue to dialogue with them and educate, and sometimes it's difficult, you know.
Go ahead, keep going.
Okay, and we're just really grateful for those organizations who have joined with us and continue to support us. So, trapping advocacy. We have state chapters that are working within their states, focused on education, advocacy, and action. And please contact us if you'd like to start a chapter in your state. But I have a list. If you look in Facebook, you'll find our groups and the website for Trap Free will lead you to those local groups, state groups. Half of all animals caught and killed in traps are non-targeted species, including thousands of domesticated pets. Most people don't really know this or understand it. It's banned in over 85 countries, but it's allowed in many states in the United States, including on public lands, including wildlife refuges in some cases. And that's something we really need to understand and educate people more. Linda says we must work on the maze of laws in the county, state, and national level. And I've been working on some of the bear issues in Florida, and it really is an experience to just jump in and start working on the legislative level in the state and to see how important that is. I think, how, what an impact that has and how much power our state legislatures have with these issues in the state law level. We support in legislation, we support laws, federal laws, like the Scientific Integrity Act, HR 4893, which establishes more scientific integrity as science as the basis for critical decisions rather than politics of special interest. We have all seen the consequences of BLM not following the science as directed even though it's in the Wild Horse Act. Another piece of legislation that's current is Representative Don Beyer, Virginia, who we met with. He has a Wildlife Corridors and Conservation Act, HR 7221, which is a really good one. And I forgot to mention, as far as working with the younger generation, Wild Beauty Foundation is doing some wonderful work, and we'll be hearing from her a little bit later.
In about 5 minutes.
Okay. And the big picture, nationally and globally, we must keep realizing our connection to the big picture. And Linda is very wanted me to bring forth about President Biden's 3030 conservation plan, now called America the Beautiful. And I put the website on there so you can take a look. And it aligns with the UN International Convention on Biodiversity, so COP15, which has a landmark international agreement which the US declined to ratify. However, the Biden administration did bring forth this 3030 plan, and that UN convention really focused on biodiversity and protection of native wild species from extinction, and I included some of their goals And there's some handouts with the full thing. It's really interesting to look at, so to read through. And I think for us to understand the private interests who block progress on climate change and environmental initiatives, just like they did with COP15, are the same industry groups and their allies who block reform of wild horse and burro reform policy and wildlife policy. It's the cattle industry, we've talked about this, big ag, mining, extraction, trophy hunting groups. They work together, very well organized. They definitely hold some of our officials hostage, preventing the policies that we need, the actions that we need for a healthy, safe, and wild future. We must stand together to stand against them and have our voices count. And it's not just about saving wild horses, it's about a sustainable environment for all living things. And our future in America and the world depends on keeping wild horses and burros wild on our way.